All right, we are live. Sam is back. Um, I got muted right now. I'm joined by Mike Washington,
What's up,
otherwise known
guys?
as
How's it going?
It's going. So, with everything going on, obviously, I really wanted to bring, everyone else in here, really gauge everyone's opinions, all that goofy stuff. It's been a last crazy couple days, in my opinion. So, I mean, I'm glad to just have other people to talk with and, go back and forth with and whatnot. So I guess Sam's kicking out for a minute, but Mike, how are we doing today?
Good, man. Good, good. Excited for the new edition of Spring Ball. That's for sure.
Something, man. Right now, it's all like pretty wild in my opinion. I know that's a pretty like lame way to put it, but right now it's just pretty goofy for me. Like the amount of feedback from players, coaches, everyone in between. Obviously, no one really knowing what's going on right now. So there's a lot of people just kind of riding the wave right now. Not really sure like what I'm doing with my career. So I mean, I hate to be like that, but at the same time, like we were literally just talking about it in the group chat. It was like all these CFL homers are all jazzed up, and I'm like, bro, you you got the pick of the litter right now, my man. Those neg lists mean a little bit more right now.
Yeah, and I think the CFL is going to benefit from this because of the
Spice
eight
Adams.
teams. Right. Well, because of the 8 teams that are, being, axed or reportedly being axed or in sleep mode, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the CFL for sure is definitely going to be, should be jazzed up as far as the fans are concerned and the league is concerned, to be honest with you.
So, Sam, I want to get your take on it since you're really in step with like the arena leagues and whatnot. But Sam, while you're discussing that, I wanted to show that. Let me get rid of that. I wanted to show um, the Wikipedia page that is up now for the UFL. So not that that really matters too much and whatnot, but as I start to struggle to play it up, bring it up, there we go. So the Wikipedia page, and granted, it is Wikipedia, so take that for what it's worth, is finally up for the UFL, and they kind of have taken the initiative to put these teams out there already. So those you can see on the screen, that's what they got. The sweep, what's going on, man? That's what they got. They got the Panthers, Stallion, Showboats, DC Defenders, Arlington Renegades, Houston Roughnecks, San Antonio Brahmas, and of course, my St. Louis Battlehawks. But Sam, as someone who's really in step with the UFL and everything like that, or excuse me, with the IFL, AFL, all these arena leagues, are y'all chomping at the bit as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've already seen a good number of players sign contracts with the AFL or the IFL. I mean, I've actually got a list here if you don't mind me running down it real quick. So,
Read it once, check it twice.
absolutely. So, I mean, just right off the top, the first name that kind of jumped out to me was Matt Elam, former first-round pick for the Baltimore Ravens once upon a time. Played in the IFL. In between the XFL stints that he had, ended up back with the Orlando Guardians, and he's kind of hedged his bets to make sure that he's on a roster for 2024 by signing an AFL contract, which it can realistically be ripped up if he gets selected or, signs with an XFL or USFL team. So he's not really losing anything as of yet. That Orlando Predators team actually has 3 separate players that played on the Guardians in 2023 on their roster, Emmanuel Olenga and Roman Tatum being the other 2. You also have Hunter Rison over there in Southwest Kansas. You got Bruce Trigg, former Generals offensive lineman with the Salina Liberty. Bailey Giffen, the kicker from the Vegas Vipers, is with the Billings Outlaws now. Tony Farah, defensive tackle, is going to play a little bit of offensive line as well with Albany, so that's going to be interesting to watch. You got Chase Forcade, former Maulers quarterback, down there with the Louisiana Voodoo, which we got to announce on our channel. Michael got to announce on our channel. That was pretty awesome. Justin Alexander, former Brahmas player, is now out there with West Texas. Cecil Cherry has signed with the West Texas team as well. And Rubens Joseph also signed with West Texas. He was briefly with the XFL this past season as well. In the IFL, we got a few of them, not as many. I'm sure I'm missing some names on the IFL side, so if anybody can fill in, please do. You got Sunday Dang. He was with Orlando as well. Jerry Cantave from the USFL, and then you also got Darnell Holland, former USFL player as well.
Yeah, just hearing that, Sam, it sounds like the AFL is definitely going to appear to be reaping the benefits more than any of the other leagues. And I'm sure there's probably, structure and all that stuff involved with that as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things that's sticking out to me in particular. I mean, obviously, one of the disadvantages the IFL has is that they actually run concurrent now with the USFL or the UFL, sorry. So at this point, they start about 2 weeks ahead of the UFL. Their season's longer, so their season's going to run basically as long, if not longer, than the UFL season does. So a lot of those players are, I don't want to say at a disadvantage because obviously they're in game shape should they need to be called up. But at the same time, I think the AFL provides a little bit of an advantage to those players because they'll be in camp. They won't necessarily be in games, flying across the country to show up in away games and stuff like that. And they'll be a little bit more accessible, at least for that month of April until the season starts. And we'll see, what that ultimately pans out to be. But I'm definitely very interested to see what happens with the remaining UFO players that don't make it into the new league.
Yeah, I mean, I think GMs across and player personnel people across Canada, across the arena leagues, and then even the GMs that are remaining with the UFL and whatnot. I think they're put up in a really good space personally, because now if a quarterback goes down or a offensive lineman goes down, you have guys who have been playing recently that are able to kind of step in and go make plays and whatnot. Something as well is that, in my opinion, this might come off a little bit offensive to people, is when you get to week 8 to 10 of the XFL season, if you're needing an extra body, or whether it be a practice squad guy or fill in the back part of your roster, you don't have to sign a guy like Jeremy Hickbottom to be your quarterback. And I know that might be upsetting to some people, but do you think like the DC Defenders really wanted Jeremy Hickbottom, or were there other guys like that were kind of hedging their bets for a USFL contract so they can make 10 weeks of pay versus, yeah, I'm a pro football player, I made $9,000 in 3 weeks and then I'm unemployed for the rest of the year? I mean, I think that's something now that you're condensing the talent and whatnot. It's you're going to have those better options for the back end because there is less opportunities, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think that a chunk of this is gonna be interesting to see how the UFL does go about managing this roster, or managing their rosters with the 8 teams, because supposedly the other 8 teams are going to be going on like a little sleep mode or whatever you want to call it. So is it going to be one of those things where the players that have signed their letters of intent, are they going to be UFL first? Are they locked in? Like, I don't know what the details of the letter of intent is, or is it just literally a letter of intent? Like, because I haven't seen it specifies what that letter of intent, is. So I am curious to find out what that is. I doubt it's a contract per se, but is it going to be UFL first pick of the litter, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just interested to see what happens with that player pool.
I think if anything, that's kind of like the XFL, kind of getting the word from the player, like, hey, if you're offered a contract, if you're selected, signed, whatever, will you sign type deal? Because honestly, at this point, like, how could you even offer all those guys contracts?
Right.
No, I mean, granted, we are watching, USFL still signing players up until a couple days ago, including teams that we think are getting the axe, but it's such a fluid situation that it's so crazy to kind of watch how it's all unfolding and look at all the details and wonder, really what's going on behind the scenes. Cause we still don't really know quite yet.
Yeah. I guess I should clarify. I meant like that Team 9 situation like Vince had in 2020. Like that the league had that contract for players that were like supposedly, you're ready to go. You're not playing yet, but be prepared type of situation. That's what I was trying to get at with that. Was like, is it going to be like a Team 9 situation?
I hope
Honestly,
so. I hope so.
I was going to say I would love that, because at least that's a way to, employ another 40, 50 guys like they did in, 2020. And it's not obviously going to quell all the fact that, we're losing 400 some jobs here, but at the end of the day, that's progress. And I mean, that's something. And hopefully they do carry a little bit bigger rosters this season. I mean, that is one thing that I'm kind of banking on as well, to hopefully get some of these guys back on teams. Because honestly, that's the little bit of this that just I can't get past. At the end of the day, it's awesome to see this merger happen. I really wish all 16 teams would have been able to make it. I understand the financial side, but at the end of the day, we're talking about 400 some guys losing their jobs, and this may not be their sole source of income by any stretch. But at the same time, I mean, for some of these players, this might be the last time we ever see them suit up.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the XFL and the USFL are the adult versions of Last Chance U, and I've been very vocal about this moving forward, is with everything going on in college football. I've had high school coaches talk to me like about it too. Is like, these D2, like the D2s and the FCS schools, like they're getting poached by the Power 5 conferences and whatnot. And then, I don't want to call it an idiotic take, because it's only idiotic for the last like 3 years. But, like people are like, oh, you might get a guy like Kenny Robinson. And I'm like, well, one, Kenny Robinson was kind of shown a door at West Virginia. Two, he needed to make legitimate income because of his mother's medical situation, which it's not a HIPAA violation, it's public. And three, you also have a guy like if Kenny Robinson was at West Virginia, you're telling me as a starter, and I don't want to use the word phenom, but you're telling me he couldn't have been bringing in $100,000, especially once that story came out about his mother and needing money and stuff like that. Like, get out of here, man. Like the guy, you're better off doing the Stetson Bennett thing and staying in college for 9 years and making as much money as you can, and pushing on through there. Like, we're not going to get any college players coming up, leaving the opportunity to leave a school early. It's not going to happen, because there's either the hope of going to an FBS school, or just extending your draft stock and whatnot, and making a little bit of money in college, and doing that. Adam Cohn writes, "No gamblers." I mean, it's not official until it's official, right?
I do want to touch on that real quick, because from what I've been reading or seeing or whatever it may be, is that the Gamblers as an organization supposedly survived. It's just they're rebranding them as the Roughnecks. So it's like the head coaching staff is going to be in place. It's the Gamblers roster. That's the reason why Wade Phillips is the head coach of San Antonio now.
Well, rewind it. Wade Phillips was under contract no matter what, and right. Mitchell brought it out that Hines Ward refused a pay cut from the $600,000 that he'd be making in 24 to whatever he's making in 25. Which I looked up Hines Ward's income he made in the NFL, and he's made $38 million, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to scoff and say that's pennies, and he's coached in the NFL and coached at FAU, I believe. But, $38,000 since 2012, what is it? 5% goes to the agent, 3% goes to the agent. Like, I'm sure he's got kids and whatnot, nice house. Like, I feel like I would take $600,000 and kind of BS my way through a season. Like, I'm not saying it's gone. I'm just saying that, $38 million 11 years ago, over the span of years, it might not be, that bank account might be only, I don't want to say only $5 million, but You get what I'm saying on that.
Yeah. And again, this is just speculation. It's what I've been hearing as far as the Gamblers and Roughneck situation is concerned. And part of that is the reason why, even though Wade Phillips was under contract, he moved to San Antonio, was because they were going to keep the Gamblers staff. As far as the USFL division, I mean, that's if they do a USFL XFL division. Chances are it's going to be north and south, judging from the map. That would be my guess.
Yep. And guys, I have college game day pulled up. Right now, it's just them, just talking. So as soon as we do get college game day with, The Rock or some goofy, thing about the intersections of opportunity with Danny Garcia doing her girl boss pose, then we'll transfer over there. So, but yes, we are keeping tabs on that 100%.
It's a strong pose, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, it's stunning.
It's a very strong pose.
It's stunning and brave. It's very stunning and brave.
Adam, I do want to say one thing, man. It seems like a lot of people are taking everything that's been said on Twitter or wherever as gospel. I'm actually one person that got caught up in the misinformation, to be completely honest. I wrote some articles about that dispersal draft that was supposed to happen on the 27th. So I would just say, until the league says it, or certain people say it, you want to make sure that you're really vetting the info and where you're getting it from, because not to point fingers at anybody, but there has been so many different variations of the information that I've quite frankly tried to stay out of it completely until recently. We don't really know anything until the league says it. It's been so fluid. You've seen reports of 12 teams, of 10 teams, of 8 teams, of all 8 USFL teams making it, of 6 USFL teams making it. It's beyond a point of where we're probably just waiting for these markets to be announced, rather than, kind of assuming any of the information that we have is 100% accurate at this point.
Who knows? Maybe they'll drop a bombshell and say all 16 survived.
Yeah, and with that being said, you also got to think, like, people are being told things. I don't think a lot of people who put stuff out have bad sources, for lack of a better term. If you're being told things one day, like that Vegas Vipers email, I'll always bring it back, is what that person, a president of team operations, was told. So it's like, you think that person's going out there and putting some malicious stuff out there? I don't think so. I mean, Metal Crip, I want to touch on your comment. Enough with the expansion. I mean, I know that's a big topic on YouTube, and it's clickbaity and it's breaking news. But at the same time, it's like, I would rather have 8 teams for the next 20 years than 16 teams for 2 seasons. But I mean, it is a valid like ask, because Metal Crip, I don't know where you live, but if you have a market that you want to see this stuff in, then yeah, hell yeah, I can imagine you wanting to see a team in your market. Appreciate the comment, man. Make sure you like, subscribe, everyone. 23 people in here, if y'all can helps us out. And then Daniel Scott wrote something that if you guys want to touch on as well, we kind of touched on that a bit.
Yeah, I want to go back to the expansion thing, and it's the same thing that I thought of when the XFL came back, and everybody was talking about, year 2, let's expand from 8 to 12 and all that stuff. Like, for me, I would much rather, like you, Pat, just see 8 teams over the course. I mean, preferably I would have liked to have seen 12 come out of this, but 8 teams over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. And after you hit that mark, maybe kind of, test markets, see where you possibly could be, stuff like that. Because I feel like that with Orlando not returning in this situation, I feel like that market is burnt. Between the AAF, where the Apollos were starting to gain a lot of momentum and in a short period of time, and the Guardians kind of having a decent turnout in 2020, but then obviously the XFL 2022. Well, the Guardians were in New York at that time, sorry.
Yeah.
But the Guardians this time here in Orlando started gaining a little momentum, but the team wasn't very good. But I think there was enough people that was engaged in it, but now the team's been taken away from them again. So I'm like you, I'd like to see the 8 teams over the course of the 3 to 5 year mark, and then maybe explore 2 markets. I wouldn't expand beyond 2 at a time. especially in a spring ball like this, just to make sure that it's viable and that you have the resources coming in. And as far as the college playoffs are concerned, I don't think with the NIL deals that are happening and being tossed around, especially at a Power 5 conference, you're going to see any of those recruitments. If you're going to see any type of recruitments for the UFL, it's going to be like you were saying, Pat, probably the FCS level and below.
Yeah, maybe group of 5.
Maybe a group of 5, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just, there's too much potential for a Power 5 guy to make money, in my opinion, and do that. Like, I would advise against it. Metal Crip writes he was in Florida and Washington, so I mean, kind of burned on both ends. Florida's not only had the Guardians, but they technically had the Tampa Bay Bandits, Bandit Ball. They had the Florida Tuskers, which I don't know if they won the championship. I know they went 6-0. I think they lost to the Locomotives, which Jim Haslett was the coach of that. Was that team? So you've had that. I think they had the Florida Black Tips of the Experimental Football League and whatnot. So that's my take on it, But you're seeing the Sea Dragons, that they got burned over the last 2 years or 2 seasons. I've had people in St. Louis talk to me like, "Hey, man, like I'm all about the Battlehawks, but between Kroenke 2020, like I'm not invested until 2024." So I think that's a pretty like reasonable take for a lot of people. JM writes the new season start is better for the New York market, won't be as cold. Yeah, I mean I don't think MetLife's the move for them to play there, but you are competing against the Yankees and Mets during the season. So take that for what it's worth. JM, appreciate the comment. Hope you liked. Hope you dropped the sub. Helps us out. And then Adam Cohn with a reasonable take on expansion is when you start selling teams. That's my opinion. I sell one franchise. That financial burden is done from the league. Now it's on John Smith, who owns the Battlehawks or whatever, or Alex Rodriguez.
No, I definitely like that idea. My question would be, is it expansion from the league at that point and they create another team and then try to sell it that way, or are they just selling off markets? Because to me, it would make a little bit more sense to sell off expansion markets, but I don't think we're quite to that point yet.
Yeah, I think all 8 franchises would have to be sold first, I think, before there's anything along those markets, unless they do like Pat kind of mentioned. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but like where the league does expand into a market and then try selling that franchise off. But you have to prove that franchise is, viable to get a buyer. So that would be my guess. Like I know that a lot of leagues now, like the NHL, the MLB and all that stuff, like when they expand, they go into the market and explore the options to see if there's any interest for people to want to own a team in the league. And then obviously there's entry fees and all that stuff. I just don't think the UFL would be at that point of being like, it's going to be a high dollar percentage. So if you're going to want to get into this league selling off teams, I think sooner would be better than later, because you want that to, grow in value over time. So
100%. And that's actually kind of something I was curious about your guys' opinion on. I mean, if you're somebody that's looking at purchasing a franchise in a league like the UFL, I mean, what kind of money are we even talking about for a team like that? I mean, you're talking salaries alone. That's a couple million a year, not counting facilities, venue rental, if you have a cost with that, depending on where you're playing. That a Memphis team might be very attractive over the next couple of seasons due to their stadium deal.
I wouldn't be surprised. Go ahead, Pat.
I mean, there's 3 people, technically 4, that come to mind when I think of who could buy a team real quick. It's Gary Vaynerchuk, because all he does is talk about owning the Jets. Well, own this team first before you can run the Jets. I don't think the Johnsons will ever sell. He's based out of New York. A-Rod, because he was talking about buying the Generals at one point. I mean, I think that guy's got buku amount of money to where he could do it. Worldwide Technology in St. Louis. They own the St. Louis stadium for the soccer team here. So I think getting a conglomerate group out of St. Louis isn't too crazy. And then we also have Stiefel in St. Louis as well. And then there's always Jerry Jones, throwing his money in there. And then you can always look back into like football players, retired football players, like might be a little bit of a long shot, but a Tom Brady, got Peyton Manning, guys who, John Elway, even, guys who have dabbled in this that kind of, don't want to make the 700,000 or $700 million plunge for a franchise. But I mean, Diddy kind of bothers me because, years ago he wanted to buy the Carolina Panthers and he was going to put Colin Kaepernick there and, he was going to make it a social justice movement. And then he kind of like keeled out of it, that's something that like, hey man, like put your money where your mouth is. Like, I don't believe a XFL franchise is even close to a Carolina Panthers, So Diddy, I think it was more talk than anything else on that front. But I think those are options personally. Guys, we're reaching the high water mark, 32, 34. If you guys can drop a like and subscribe, helps us out.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too with buying is obviously if you're going to be an investor looking to, or a potential owner in a league like this, I definitely still think buying or investing in it sooner is definitely going to be better than later. But at the same time, they have to make sure that the league is going to be viable. Like it's got to make sure that the league is going to have the stability to last. I mean, the USFL jumping into their third season, or what would have been their third season this year, which I guess you can qualify it with the UFL. You can qualify it as UFL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go franchises. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
like if the franchises are going, then we're going.
Yeah. So I mean, with that being said, that's the third year. I mean, that's already more sustainable and stable than we've seen, in recent attempts from the old USFL. Back in the 80s or early 90s. So it's just now if you're looking at this and you're seeing this merger, I think it makes it a lot more appealing, and I think it definitely is going to bring a lot more eyes on it. It's just I think first season, second season, and then maybe we'll start seeing maybe some talk about these franchises being sold off. I know they want to try to do it sooner. I just don't know if the same people that are looking at the leagues are going to look at it like we do. Like, I don't know if they're going to look at the USFL as a third season or if they're going to look at it as a UFL first season, and the USFL second season was too much for them and they were going to fold, so they had no choice but to merge. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's going to be some doubters out there. So I think the UFL is going to have to do maybe 2 seasons, in my opinion, before we start seeing potential buyers.
Yeah. I could see that. I can see that. I do like what Jay says here about the fan ownership like Green Bay. I think that would be something that would definitely what is that? Oh.
So Luke Miller made a fantasy fantasy wish list for the Stallions. I just wanted to as I keep bouncing back between game day, I don't, see The Rock or Danny Garcia right now. They're doing the coming up. They're doing a one-on-one with Jim Harbaugh, so we could be here for a minute. I mean, more interactions with people. The biggest thing about these live streams that, have kind of got me going is like, I just enjoy talking to everyone's opinions and whatnot. It's really helped the growth of my channel and just like that, but also talking to people has always been like pretty cool. But that's my take on it. Sam, continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I kind of lost my train of thought when that popped up. I was just curious if that was some sort of draft board at first. It took me a second to see that as a tweet.
No, not right now. Right. JM's got a comment. What about fan ownership like Green Bay that could work in a market like St. Louis?
That's right. So, I definitely think that's a great move.
There's too many major players in St. Louis that have egos that I don't feel like they would do it, to be honest with you. I think if St. Louis is going to do it, they're going to have someone in, St. Louis has a lot of money. You got, the Cohens are here, You have the Bushes that are here. You have other people here that, enjoy fitness and sports and whatnot. Like, I think there's too many egos to do here personally that they're, that were scorned by the Rams that are going to be like, nah, this is what you were doing. They might even do Purina, man. Purina has got a, Purina is based out of here, so it could be a possibility on that front. Like I think it's going to be a financial group.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think St. Louis will be the first team to probably sell.
Yeah,
Would be my guess. If any of the franchises, it would probably be St. Louis. The city's embraced them. You haven't seen the same kind of support. DC's had pretty good support, but playing at Audi Field is kind of limiting what their potential could be, just because of the it's a 20K stadium in comparison to some of the other ones. So, but overall, I think the Battlehawks easily have one of the strongest fan bases, and if it's going to sell, St. Louis is definitely going to probably be the first one to sell. So
I think you could get like Kevin Durant. I know he's got like ownership and whatnot in something in DC or the DMV area. I think Kevin Durant, he's got plenty of money if that's something he wanted to do. Adam Cohn writes, could see Dan Gilbert buying the Michigan Panthers. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I could see a lot of people buying. I think right now you have Fred Smith, the St. Louis conglomerate, Gary Vaynerchuk, and maybe a couple other people scattered throughout the United States. It just comes. I mean, you're talking about billionaires here, man. It's going to come down to egos and saying I own this. I think that's why The Rock and Danny Garcia are doing their thing.
Probably. I think The Rock, he's like scratching that football itch he's had since, he flamed out basically. And, I don't blame him. I always tell players, play as long as you can, man. Stay close to the game for as long as you possibly can, because it'll pass you by real quick. So, I mean, why not? I mean, and in terms of like teams that I could see being sold early on, I look to all those Texas teams. Texas and football go hand in hand, man. There's got to be enough people with money down there that somebody sees the value in buying a San Antonio team that had crazy good attendance last year at times, or, maybe you want to buy the Arlington Renegades because you can say, hey, I bought a championship franchise out of year one, and, we're going to come back and we're going to compete for, ring number 2 in year 3 or year 5 or whatever it may be. So I definitely like the idea of St. Louis. Obviously, St. Louis has had the best support of any spring league team basically since the UFL, I would say. And, obviously that market makes the most sense to sell for sure. But Texas definitely has some appeal to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's just, with Texas, it's just going to be a matter of, if it comes time for the Arlington Renegades, does Jerry Jones try to make it a living nightmare for whoever's trying to purchase it? Talking about egos and talking about, just Jerry Jones is like the top of that list for the most part. So, will he make it a living nightmare for them for sure? So I think you'd get less resistance in San Antonio and Houston for sure. It would just be, whether or not Jerry will view that as a,
That's right.
whatever. So
yeah,
I would see San Antonio as kind of that first pick in Texas, if anything.
Well, The Rock could always own San Antonio, and Danny could always own Arlington or Orlando out of their own pocket. JM talks about, do we have figures for Michigan attendance last year? I heard it was around 15K. No attendance was given out officially by the USFL. I didn't go to any USFL games last year, so I don't know if they announced it or put it on the big screen and whatnot, but they didn't publicly announce it. Also, that being said, Kurt Menefee did mention at the Memphis game there was 30,000 people there for opening weekend. I don't know personally. If anyone went to a Michigan game or any USFL game, did they ever announce it? If you could put that in the comments, that'd be pretty dope. But with that being said, I mean, just from the eye test, Michigan looked pretty okay. But I mean, this is the thing: is like when you had the teams in the market, it looked pretty okay. I mean, Canton looked good during the championship game. One of the playoff games didn't look too hot, but I'll always go back and I talk about it every time it comes up. Is when you go to Birmingham in that first season, you ask Birmingham fans for 10 weeks in a row to show up for 10 weeks in a row. 40 games. That's a lot. Yeah, so Adam confirms never announced.
Yeah.
I mean, I talked to Jake from UFL Shadow now. He talks about it being, around like 10 to 15,000. Other people have said the same thing. I mean, I can only see that number growing personally
Yeah.
because the Lions are doing well, so everyone's going to get goofy on that front. You know, I think it kind of jazzes you up for these football games when the market's doing well. Then everyone else is going to want to care about more football, especially maybe even Michigan, uh, maybe even Michigan as well. So still on College Game Day, by the way. It's Kurt, Pat, and I think Desmond there. So
I figure they probably won't announce it till closer to like 11:30 ish range.
hey man, I'm all about them streams.
Yeah, no doubt,
I'm
for sure.
I'm trying to jazz up these watch hours, so we're trying to figure it out from there.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm not monetized like you guys now.
We'll,
Soon.
we'll get you there, Pat. We'll get you there.
We gotta make 94 burner accounts and just
And just keep
no.
watching yourself on a loop.
Yeah, pretty
leave
much.
the house, leave it on, just let it on a loop.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's what I helped out Sam when I was in Mexico. And I was just like running it while I was out, and then, but I mean, it's all good though. Michael, you want to tap on this roster that Luke Miller? Shout out to Luke Miller, made a wish list of everyone that he wants the Stallions to get.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at the list, I mean, you can clearly see that the amount of talent that right now is not, under a contract with a team that supposedly is going to make it. Like Reuben Foster, as we all know his story. The fact that he actually didn't get a chance to get back into the NFL or stick is kind of surprising, but number one on a wish list, you could build around a defense around Foster easily. And Birmingham's already loaded as it is. So if Birmingham was able to land, a guy like Reuben Foster, that would easily make them, one of the favorites to repeat, I guess you could say, or win the UFL inaugural championship. For whatever it may be. But I mean, you just take a look at this list as a whole. Hercules had a great year for the Generals last year. Adam Rodriguez has always been pretty consistent with Philadelphia. Channing Stribling, he's a risk taker, a little bit of a gambler, but overall he produces when it comes time to. Chris Orr, he had some successful NFL seasons. I mean, Darius Victor is obviously a running bowling ball. Paris Ford, I think he's a former second round pick. Jonathan Adams and Corey Coleman are both on this list, which are, we all know about those two guys when it comes to, spring football. Terry Poole with the Maulers, he was considered one of the best offensive linemen. I think he graded out in a PFF, Pro Football Focus last year as one of the highest rated offensive tackles in the league. And Bailey Gaither is an interesting one when it comes to Birmingham, because looking at that wide receiver room, I don't know if they have a guy that's able to do a little bit of his skill set in a consistent manner like he's been able to do in recent years. So I think it's a stellar list put together, and as a non-Birmingham fan, I hope that they don't get any of these guys. So
I mean, in my opinion, I don't think Birmingham needs anyone, man.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the success is in the formula, man. I think it's just they've won free agency. I don't think anyone really touches them as far as how good or how bad they did. I think maybe you can talk about the Battlehawks because of PETA and Borgie and whatnot, and I think Coda Martin's kind of a unsung hero that they picked up, but really this is kind of a soft point to make, but I don't really see anyone consistently being able to compete with Birmingham in free agency. Now, when they get on the field, I think they can match up and whatnot, and I think St. Louis can give them a run for their money, and DC gives them a run for their money, depending on what DC does at quarterback. But I mean, Birmingham right now should be the favorite. I just feel like there's such a haves and have-not with these teams personally. Like I that's I felt like the talent in the XFL was distributed better, but I feel like the USFL there was a very have and have not.
Yeah. Have we received details on what they're going to do? Is it going to be a USFL specific draft for USFL teams and an XFL one for the XFL teams, or we have not heard anything along those lines yet?
From what I was told by several players and the coach, is that the initial dispersal draft and the phases is still in play, and then it
Okay.
goes. Yeah, and I mean dates have been moved around. I think the last date I heard was January 5th, and then the big one between the two leagues is January 15th, which kind of makes sense because then they go into camp on the 23rd of February, which is confirmed now.
Okay, all right. That's what I figured as much because I noticed that this list here is all USFL teams. So
yeah, I mean
Luke,
Luke is very big in USFL. He's
sure.
got the tabs on it, but get ready to change that, buddy. Get ready to learn UFL.
Yeah, exactly. I will say there are a couple things that the Stallions need that I think he's lacking on his list. And I actually did a very similar list in an article on USFL News Hub just a couple days ago. So definitely check that out. And actually, me and Luke think very similar. I had Reuben Foster on my list. I had Hercules Mataafa, Luis Aguilar, Adam Rodriguez, Henry St. Moore. I think Victor was on there, Shamarius Gilmore. Shad was mentioned. Terry Poole was mentioned. Jonathan Adams, Bailey Gaither. But Sage Surratt. I mean, if I have one pick and I want to pick one player off any team that existed that may not exist in 2024, I'm going for Sage Surratt. That man was dominant in 2023, and I think he's only going to get better because of the fact that he moved to tight end, 2 seasons ago?
Yeah.
And, he realistically is still learning the position. So I think that he's a big asset for any team to have, especially a Birmingham that's already got a number one tight end that can do everything a tight end should be able to do in Jay Sternberger. I think Sage Surratt also presents a unique advantage to them because he already knows the offense from being there in year one. So that would be a huge pick for me in particular. Jonathan Adams, I like a lot. I think he fits a lot of things that the Stallions don't have in their other receivers. They don't really have that big body, red zone, jump ball threat type guy. And Adams is 100% that guy that can fill that role for them. So I would like to see those two guys there. But, other than that, you guys hit the nail on the head. I mean, how can you possibly say anything bad about what the Stallions have done this offseason? I like that move as well. I think Cookus would fit in Michigan.
I mean, that depends for me. Recently you guys, I put it out there back into the universe again, and maybe it's not so accurate anymore, but I thought Cookus to San Antonio made sense because of Jaime Elizondo and what he said on y'all's interview. Obviously, with Wade going there, you look at AJ Smith being his OC. I think it kind of jacks a lot of things up personally. So I mean, we could see Brandon Silvers go there. Throw me a wild card out there real quick with Sage Surratt. If the John DeFilippo rumor is confirmed,
Memphis, that's what I was thinking too.
That's where I send him to Memphis, man. Like he'll be an asset in Birmingham, but that is a crowded room, and I just feel like there's too much good stuff with Jay Sternberger, like true fringe NFL guy. That's in my opinion. Like I feel like Sage, if I'm Sage, I want to go prove myself. I think he's 26. I want to go be the guy, like USFL championship matters, but I don't think these guys are like, man, I want to win a USFL championship or UFL championship. No, they're like, I need to get the film, I need to get back to the league, and I need to play in the league for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Jonathan Adams to Memphis too, especially if DeFilippo is there as well.
Yeah,
I just think that knowing that system, and because I mean, let's face it, between Adams and Surratt, they both benefited from DeFilippo being there, last year to a level. I know Adams was hurt for a chunk of the year, but when he was able to play, and a top guy, he was or the top guy, he kind of shined when he got his opportunities there too. And PJ Walker's NFL days, I think, are going to be behind him. So if he's going to want to play, it's going to probably be spring ball, unfortunately. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same mindset with PJ Walker. I don't think he plays this year, because I do think he still has the recency bias of like
yeah,
being in the system. You don't, and another thing too that happened to a guy like Ryan Willis, who's spring league quarterback through and through at this point, is you get signed to that futures deal, and then they cut you right after the draft. Well, the season's over, and it's like, what are they trying to do on that front, as far as building more players and everything like that. So if PJ does come back, I think he'll do the tour of get that futures deal, because now you don't know what DTR's injury is like because he's on IR. You follow that up with what are they going to do with Joe Flacco, so he'll get signed. He'll be back in the Browns quarterback room or somewhere, right? And if he does leave, that only helps PJ Walker keep his job. For everyone commenting about news, they're doing a Steve Sarkisian special right now. So you probably do need to sign them to at least be a camp body while Watson gets back to health, while DTR's injuries he gets cleared, and then if he does get released, maybe he's released by like May 30th in May, middle of May, and then the season's pretty much 7 weeks in. Might do the workout cycle and then possibly back. I see PJ more a 2025 guy. I'm going to look up how much money he's made too. So,
well, I mean,
financially, it definitely means something to take that pay cut.
Yeah, and the other thing that benefits him for 2025 in comparison to 2024 is the practice squad side of things too. Like, there's a chance Cleveland will keep him on the practice squad because A, he does know the system. B, he is, familiar with it, and with the practice squad rules nowadays in the NFL, they don't, you get a minimum contract, but it doesn't affect the team as much. So they can keep a guy around with experience, and if they need him, they need him. If they don't, they don't. So
yeah, PJ has made 5.5 mil in his NFL career.
Yeah.
So, yeah, see, that definitely gives him a little bit of time to decide. But at the same time, I mean, with him being right at that age where he might be, kind of aging out of that NFL window if, he doesn't latch on somewhere quick, I think he should act with some urgency. I mean, I don't know that he will. I think you guys are probably ultimately right. He probably won't play till 2025 or late in 2024 because, he ultimately ends up available late. Kind of like Kurt Benkert type situation. But if I'm him, man, I'm acting with some urgency. I'm running out of time. That window's closing real quick. I think I would pass on a futures deal personally. Go to the XFL or USFL, UFL, whatever you want to call it. Go ball out once again. Remind teams why I was in the NFL in the first place, and then hope and pray that I get an opportunity to stick somewhere, not necessarily as anything, as far as like a starter or a QB2, but like, find a solidified quarterback 3 job somewhere, even if it is on a practice squad, a team where they want to keep him, hopefully.
Well, yeah, and that's why I feel like PJ Walker is like, even though he's at that age, like him returning back to the UFL to try to show teams, I don't think really benefits him because they've seen him at the NFL level numerous times, whether it was Carolina or Cleveland. So they know what they're getting with him because he was basically the same in Carolina as he was with Cleveland. He makes some good throws and you're like, oh, okay, this guy's got it, and then makes a bonehead decision, and at the end of the day, it's not pretty by any means. So I think for him, his best bet's probably just to kind of stick with Cleveland for as long as they'll have him, and then after that, it is. Yeah, he's only 28, Jay, but at the same time, PJ also has been around the league for several years now, and he's been in spring ball as well. So the likelihood of him being able to hold on or get back to that point in the future probably not going to be as promising as it would have been if he was like 24. So, that's the one thing about the position, especially quarterback, is age doesn't matter when you're a starter. Like if you're an Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, but age matters when you're kind of a a journeyman guy trying to stick somewhere. So, because it goes back to the veterans minimum, that video we saw, Sam, last year, the veterans minimum in comparison to a rookie contract of an undrafted guy, that can come in and make less money. So it kind of manipulates the cap a little bit at the NFL level for that too. So we'll see. I think the Browns will keep him around for at least another year, and I think if I'm him, I'm riding that wave for as long as possible.
I could definitely see that.
I interviewed a man named Mike Babcock, who is not the hockey coach. He is the head coach of McKendree University, and Coach Babcock had Josh Johnson as his quarterback at University of San Diego after what's his name left, Jim Harbaugh left, and Babcock specifically, and I just linked the interview in there, or the clip. I made it into a short, but Babcock specifically talks about Josh's ability to grasp the playbook and everything like that, and that's what's made him be able to be so successful and everything. So, in my opinion, I always feel that that ability to grasp the playbook and be that asset and whatnot is doesn't go underappreciated. So if that's what PJ can bring and become a Josh Johnson, like people forget, Josh Johnson also played in the UFL. He was at the Sacramento Mountain Lions along with Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. So, and then came to the XFL, was drafted by the AAF. So if PJ's got to go through these career renaissance, I guess he'll do it. But I mean, it really just comes down to what he wants to do with his career, and does he want to go, become the greatest Houston Roughnecks quarterback ever? I mean, I'm not against that. I mean, I definitely think it puts eyes on things a little bit, because not only do you have, and this might be a very over dramatic thing, but you got PJ Walker in the NFL, right? You got Deshaun Watson. He retweets some of his stuff. You got his boys from the Browns retweeting some of his highlights and whatnot. I think that stuff matters, man. Like, I think you have these NFL guys, keeping eyes on their buddies in these smaller leagues. I think that stuff matters a lot.
I definitely agree. I think that's one of those things that is super underrated for players, is that kind of collaborative exposure that they get over time.
Well, I think a lot of it's also related to, they go to camp together. A lot of them do. A lot of them went to college together, depending on where they went to college. And, you build up a camaraderie over time. Like, I definitely think the NFL players are paying attention, because I think some of these guys are cheering for, because they know them at the end of the day, like, it's just the way that works. So the exposure is always going to keep you in the loop,
And you also got, like, a lot of people's brothers are playing in this, and I don't say brother like Hulk Hogan brother. I mean, like, actual like family. Fred Warner's brother plays in the league. The Nakuas, two of the Nakuas are in the league. Khalil Davis, his brother signed Carlos and now is back in the NFL. But, like, hey man, you should do this type thing. There's a lot of different family members, that are crossing paths. We made a big deal about Doug Peterson's son being in the league, Josh. Right. So it's like there's a lot of family connections that, the USFL and the XFL have, like, granted. Do you know who Christian Watson's brother is? It's Trey.
Trey Watson,
yeah. That's pretty much what, in my opinion. Scott getting on this high horse. I don't want to say high horse. That's not fair. I didn't mean that disrespectfully. Talking about expansion. Scott, if you've heard us in the stream, it's not that we're anti-expansion. We're pro-realism.
For sure.
So while I'd love to have 27 teams in this league, I would rather watch these games for the next 20 years, bringing my kids to these games, having people I care about be involved and invested. So we're not anti-expansion. We're pro-realism. And, right now, I don't see expansion being a real thing. I know, once again, I know it's breaking news, but, and I mean that like in a respectful way, but no, I don't. Your boy wants 8 teams for 20 years rather than 74 teams for a year and a half.
And honestly, I don't want to see more than 16 ever.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't want to see more than 16 ever, because I think 16 is a good number, and I think that it provides a solid spring into the start of summer. Like, you can still keep the schedule between 10 and 12 games. You don't have to expand to 18, 19, 20 games like the NFL seems to be doing. You can just kind of focus on a good 10 to 12 round schedule, and then just kind of leave it at that. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I think people, everybody wants a market. Like, I want a team close to me. Like, I feel like I have a great market here. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, 16 is plenty. I think we're all in step with that.
Yeah.
Something I want to do that might be a little edgy is when you do have the 16 teams. Obviously, that does employ a lot of people, but if they can kick the schedule back to where these guys could be at minicamp, and I'm such a strong proponent of sending these guys to minicamp, and I always will bring back to friend of the show is Eric Magwood, who's never come on the pod, but we'll kick it in real life every once in a while. But Eric was an IFL guy. He was at the Arizona Rattlers. He went to a couple different colleges. I think EKU, Middle Tennessee State, and I think he went to Murray State. But he gets an opportunity with the Battlehawks because he was working out with Robert Mendici and Derek Dennis, and people saw him. Hello, Val. Val, if you're gonna call me a lady, I hope you're subscribed.
Yeah.
But with that being said, you had all that goofy stuff going on, and then you get the opportunity that he got to go to minicamp and whatnot. He didn't get signed, but he still had that opportunity, and so many of these guys had opportunities and whatnot, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens on that front, but Scott bringing up North and South divisions are easier for a new casual fan to get on board with. I mean, yeah, I'm not thinking you're saying anything crazy on that front. I
just think it makes the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, like geographically, but we'll see what happens. People want to do the USFL, XFL division, but the Gamblers are going to be the Roughnecks allegedly. So, I mean, but in hopefully 10 minutes, all that is completely moot, and Dwayne comes up there and he says, "Let's ball out, baby."
Yeah, and just says, "Let's do 16 teams, and we'll never have to expand ever again."
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's wishful thinking, because I mean, if you take a look at the teams that are proposed that are supposedly sticking around, it makes sense because they all have home markets. I was actually a little surprised that they didn't try to go with 10 teams though, and try to keep Orlando and do a Canton team. Just because of the nature and the relationship that the USFL built with Canton over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I get that they probably didn't want to have to shell out the money to brand a whole new team and et cetera, but it just, I was kind of hoping for 10. 12 would have been nice, but I was kind of hoping for 10 realistically. Keep Orlando, keep them in the South Division, and put a Canton team in there in the North Division, or USFL, XFL division, however you want to call it. And go with it from that manner. But maybe that's what will happen. Maybe The Rock will be like, we pulled the wool over your eyes, or Daryl Johnston does. But that's just more of a wishful thinking than it was anything else. So
yeah, and I think Scott's on point with it. And
yes.
I mean, it's kind of at this point a circular discussion, but a discussion nonetheless. Yeah. But I think everyone is 16 in the future. I think that's the goal. I think it's also a pretty hard flex. New high watermark, by the way, 44, guys.
Nice,
if you're new, I think we hit 51 yesterday, but I think people were coming on my stream thinking it was Reed's, and I kept sending Reed's link, and they're like, he kept pushing his back, so I was like, nope, guys, go to Reed's. I talked to him before. I'm not cannibalizing, because I asked him if he was cool with me doing this, because I've been getting good feedback and whatnot. He's like, yeah, go for it. But he put out a good stream. I was on that as well. But looking at College Game Day right now, guys, nothing going on. Still, the Fab Five, Joey Galloway up there, Kirk Herbstreit, Reese Davis, and Desmond Howard with Pat McAfee, and then some bald dude there. So I will throw that on that way. Kicking back to Luke Miller's list. Is there anyone missing on this that you're just like? I know we talked about Sage Serrato a little bit. Is there anyone missing on this that you're like, hey man, like that's the guy? Because if I'm Birmingham, I'm more focused on like I want to keep as many of my 42 core guys as I possibly can.
It's not that necessarily what's missing. It's actually more or less a position that's missing for me on this, and that's quarterback. Like I know that they have, some quarterbacks down there that are obviously fantastic with what they've had in the past with Jamar and Alex McGough and whatnot, but there's no definitives that those guys are coming back. I believe because I if I'm correct, I don't believe. I think Magoo is still with Denver, if I'm correct. Is it Denver?
Magoo's with
Green Bay. Sorry, yeah. So, I mean, there's no definitive. So just the fact that there's no QB on this list to kind of just bring into possibly into camp was a little surprising to me, just to have somebody there just in case somebody didn't come back type of situation. Like I would have put a Case Cookus on there just for the sake of what Case was able to do in Philadelphia with a terrible offensive line. There's a DeAndre Johnson. I don't know if he necessarily fits what Birmingham does per se, but Magoo and Jamar were a little more mobile, for what they were. So I was a little bit surprised not to see his name as a possibility there. It's just more that the lack of not having a quarterback there, I think, is probably the most surprising thing to me. Not because I think that Magoo or Jamar aren't possibly going to come back. It's just at this moment in time, we don't know if they are. So if I'm going into this draft, I would like to draft at least one. Eric Barrier is a good one as well. I think Eric Barrier is a fantastic a quarterback, and I think that it would be nice to see him get a chance. Troy Williams is another one there. Javon, thank you, or Jovan. I'm assuming that if I butchered your name, just yell at me. It's fine. But those two guys are great for what the Stallions do as well. It's just more for me just to bring somebody in just to be safe type of situation, because you don't know what's going to happen. And I don't think anybody wants to see Kyle Sloter back.
Dude, they missed out. They should have put Kyle Sloter as a Stallion and Kyle Sloter as a Renegade on the opening game thing. I don't have the Photoshop skills, but I'm thinking about going on Fiverr and paying someone to do it, man. I think that'd be hilarious.
It would be pretty funny.
That would be hilarious.
I was going to say, he's still technically under contract with the Stallions as far as I know.
With Birmingham, right?
And I was going to say, I think Jamar re-signed. I could be mistaken with that.
I mean, I may have missed it as far as I was concerned, but I still feel like bringing in – I mean, the quarterback competition is always good.
Oh, to be fair, on my list, I had a quarterback on there for him because of that fact. I mean, you got Jamar Smith, who realistically, even if he does come back in 2024, you should be prepared for the fact that he might get NFL interest next season if he plays well. He had a workout with Carolina this past season. It didn't end up, culminating in a contract for him, but at the same time, he was still seeing interest. And then you look at the other quarterbacks there. You had Adrian Martinez, who they just signed. He was a rookie draft pick.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot they signed him.
Detroit, so he was with Detroit for a while there, and actually I think only was released because of the fact that they had a quarterback come back from IR, Hendon
Hooker.
Yeah.
So
I forgot Adrian Martinez signed there, so I take everything I just said.
To be fair, they've got 4 quarterbacks, but at the same time, who do you have? You got Jamar Smith, you got Kyle Sloter. So yeah, okay, I guess you have a little bit of faith in those two guys, but let's not forget Sloter was the QB3 there, because he was behind Jalen Morton when they needed him to step up and play in Jamar Smith's stead. So I think that you still should address that quarterback position, and like you said, go into camp with potentially 3 starting caliber quarterbacks. Why not? Why wouldn't you do that? In my mind, the guy that I looked to in particular was Vad Lee. He's a 4-4 guy. He's very mobile. He's got some USFL starting experience, and we already know he won't be a problem if he has to take a back seat and be a backup to Jamar Smith for a season, because he did it with Case Cookus.
Yeah, I mean, the quarterback situation is extremely, and the Savage himself, Kirsch Voss, he has graced us with his presence, bringing up, Kelly Bryant. I mean, I think Kelly Bryant was cute for what he did, and I think he was effective. But they recently signed a guy named Connor Blumrick, who's kind of a Taysom Hill tight end, and Connor Dagenhart is extremely mobile as well. So you have those two guys there. I mean, I think you got to give it to Luis Perez. Luis Perez still wants to play football. Tune in. By the way, yeah, JM is extremely correct on this. Go to us, unknown to casuals. But
did you say Luis Perez is watching us right now?
No. What my
what?
I would have been fine with it.
Yeah, well, I know his agent, so we're waiting for that. But my Luis Perez goal is I'm actually gonna, when he's done playing football, is I need him to play like 5 more years, past some of Jim Kelly's stats when Jim Kelly was with the USFL, because that's like the high watermark for spring football. But what I want to do is I want to make a documentary about Luis Perez, which is obviously down the road, and I want to put Luis Perez in the Hall of Fame. Like, I want to make a documentary for him, like putting him in the Hall of Fame, because I don't think you could tell the story of football without Luis Perez in the spring. From the spring league to the Birmingham Iron, all that goofy stuff. I mean,
I agree wholeheartedly, and honestly, I think that's one thing that needs to change. We've seen this reluctance to put spring football veterans or CFL quarterbacks or players in the Hall. But it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's not the NFL Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to completely, recognize all of these guys' accomplishments.
Which they do. They put their jerseys and whatnot in there. But, I mean, to have a bust, to have a bust of Luis Perez in there, I think, and we'll crowdfund it, obviously. But, I mean, I'm pretty in step with, like, that's something I want to do, like, especially through like the channel and all that goofy stuff. Just to kick back to College Game Day, the last thing they said is they're going to interview Dan Lanning and whatnot. And Scott is right. Nobody outside the XFL has talked about Luis Perez. I mean, you got to go off the Twitter, right? How many followers does the GOAT have?
I mean, he was on an NFL roster for a little while for a reason.
Yeah, he's made like 30 grand in the NFL.
Val,
that's brutal.
I love / hate you at this particular moment. that hurts right there. Literally.
You know what I want to see here is I want to see Chris mentioned that Slaughter doesn't make the roster. I want to see Slaughter get cut by Birmingham and then Arlington sign him.
I mean, I don't think that happens, but I don't know. We'll see what Big Game Bob thinks of that.
Not with the same coaches over there. I can't imagine that would happen for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Slaughter's doing the YouTube thing. I know he says he runs a family business on his social media. I mean, he's made a couple $1 million in the NFL. Plus, you add in his other checks from spring football and whatnot. I mean, I could see him just kind of living his own thing. Fun fact about Kyle Sloter: refused to talk with the media after the Battlehawks game.
Yeah, I mean, that's not surprising with Sloter from everything that I've heard. So
yeah,
I've never had an interaction with the guy, but just judging from his,
I mean, to be fair,
how he carries himself, it's very.
I mean, but that's our, like, that's our perspective on it.
Right.
Like I've
For
sent
sure.
Kyle a message like, hey man, like I will fly you out to St. Louis to do a 2-hour interview, dude. I'll take you to my range. We'll go do some, backwoods stuff, make it a nice experience. Because I always had like a fascination with the guy before he came to the USFL. I thought like this guy just needs an opportunity and all that stuff, and he got one. And I think that's the greatest thing about spring football too is like we don't have. I think moving forward, we won't have as many Mike Lennons in the NFL. And I always bring up the 2021 Mike Lennon season because that's who they went with. Like I'd rather see Jake Fromm do terrible than uh, than Mike Lennon, And I was hoping that they were going to start Fromm yesterday with the injury to Jacoby Brissett, just for the memes more than anything else. But it is what it is.
When did this turn into NFL talk? Where we're not allowed to talk Eagles this whole time we're here.
Bashing on the Eagles in the comments.
Gotta cut that off now, fellas.
I'll be honest with you. I'm fine with the bashing of the Eagles in the comments. So if you want to keep it up in the comments, go ahead. I mean, that's fine.
Do I know about the Mount Union QB? I need to Kirsch. It's the Plunk kid. I know of him. I haven't watched his film.
I haven't seen his film yet either. So
the guy I'm pretty jazzed up on for smaller school is the kid from Central Missouri who won the Harlan Hill, Lemdisky or something like that. Something ski. His father is the OC at KU. I'm pretty high up on him. There's a guy he plays at SEMO. His name is Paxton De Laurent. Tall guy. He's a lot like Connor Dagenhart. I think he's got a stronger arm than Connor Dagenhart. And then there's also another guy. He's at an FCS school. His name's Parker McKinney. He's at EKU. That's a guy that I'm kind of high up on as well. New high watermark, by the way, 47 people watching. Yesterday we got 50 something. So if you're new here, please like, subscribe, all that goofy stuff. I know I hate doing the shilling, but if we're trying to make a Luis Perez documentary, I will need the support of you and Google AdSense.
There you go. Hey, don't forget to share this out on your social medias as well. Make sure you're supporting Pat because I can honestly say without Pat and the support that he gave us at Shady Sports, we would not be where we're at today.
Yeah, for sure.
But speaking of small school prospects that we should definitely be considering in the UFL, and honestly, wouldn't be shocked to see him on some NFL radars despite the school he's coming out of. Colin Brunstein, a wide receiver out of Illinois College. Shout out to Brandon McGuire who turned me on to him. But
time out. Is Brandon at IC?
He was.
Okay.
I don't believe he's technically going to be returning into 2024 unless he's offered another contract. But from what we discussed last night, it was a temporary situation.
So off tangent, my connection to IC is I have like mutual connections through Mobap because all these St. Louis, Missouri kids, if they can't go to Mizzou, they can't go to SEMO, and they can't go to SIU, or I think I said Lindenwood, they're either going to want to go to Mobap or IC is usually if they want to stay on the east side of the state. Granted, there's a lot of good like MIIA football and other schools out west, like Moval and whatnot. But I bring up IC because one of my guys who works for me, his son plays there. He's a freshman, and that receiver was out of control, man. That kid was good. That quarterback threw like 28 touchdowns in 4 games, man. His name is Destin Chance. Yep. He's a junior. And I make the joke to my buddy's son, and I'm like, yeah, man, really pumped to see future Toronto Argonaut or Edmonton Elk. I make the joke about 2 people. I make it about this guy named Jackson Waring at Grandview. I'm like, yeah, dude, future Toronto Argonaut, Jackson Waring. Whenever we talk about him in the coaches' room and whatnot, I'm big on Jackson Waring, man. It's a strong kid, played at Illinois State, transferred to Grandview, and been keeping them in contention for an NAIA national championship. obviously you have Cameron Dukes up there, arena guy, who's now an NAIA guy there as well.
Exactly.
Jarrett, yeah.
Exactly. Brunstein, I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I first was turned on to him, I had never heard of the guy. I had never really scouted Illinois College or watched any of their games or anything like that. And then I looked at him, and immediately my jaw hit the floor when I looked at his numbers from 2023. I mean, 2,200 yards in receptions, 30-some touchdowns on only 90 receptions. So basically, 1 every 3 catches, this dude was scoring a touchdown, and he had 90 receptions. So I mean, it's just
dude, they had a connection, him and Destin, man,
and the crazy part is this kid handled kickoffs too. He was their kickoff specialist as well. I'm like, what in the world?
One of the quarterback situations that I want to bring in for a player to keep an eye on is Eastern Kentucky quarterback Parker McKinney.
Yeah,
if he chooses to continue to play football, his numbers at EKU were outstanding, and he had some injury issues and lost a ton of talent from 2022 to 2023, and still put up pretty good numbers. And I don't know, Harrison Frost, I don't know if you guys remember the name from the Sea Dragons. He kind of decided to join the XFL before the draft, and even though the UFL season kind of rolls into the NFL draft, I could see Parker maybe just taking that step and just maybe going, or at least attempting to make a UFL career out of it first, depending on where he's ranked in the QB rankings for the NFL draft for sure. So
I think that's an approach that we could see a lot more of heading forward. I mean, I think Harrison Frost, he's a guy who's got some interest in coaching and whatnot. So, I mean, why not make those connections? You know what I mean? If Parker McKinney sees a future in football somewhere, whether it's playing or coaching, I mean, those are connections that you can't necessarily get any other way. So, I mean, that's something that we can't necessarily sleep on either. This is a spot for these guys to potentially make those future connections to start their coaching career long term as well.
Chris just won't let Jalen McClendon go.
Well, I think he's absolutely right.
He is for sure. I just think it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that Case Cookus is a guaranteed shoo-in to get drafted. I think Troy Williams, I lean more towards yes, if not, drafted then signed. When the chips settle and camp starts happening. They're showing a B-52 bomber. No, not B-52. I think it's a B-52 bomber. Excuse me. I don't know air fixed wing that well on College Game Day right now. But Jalen McClendon's a guy that it's very intriguing with him because of how young he is as far as like reps. And that's something that, like, when I talked to Rod Woodson after the Vipers game, he was like, yo, this guy learns more every day, getting, more in step every day. Like, this guy was someone that I think I finished the XFL QB rankings at number 5. And I was like, but for him to be number 1 next year, because I didn't think Danucci was coming back. I didn't think McCarron was coming back. I'm like, this guy could finish as like a top 3 throughout the 16 quarterbacks and whatnot. Jared writes, and I want to touch on this too, is that Kyle Sloter suffered in the XFL but did good in the USFL. I mean, yes and no. I think he came out to a hot start, then he had injuries. High watermark, by the way, 49. If you're new here, please like, sub. And then injuries really kind of, slowed him down, and I feel like he threw 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, a tad under 1,800 yards in 9 games. They ended up going with Zach Smith, who is now retired, by the way. Gave it one more shot at the hub, didn't work out. He's moved on with his life. But, Sloter really, Sloter, like, I just felt once he got hurt and everything like that, like, wasn't the same QB and then wasn't comfortable in Bob Stoops' offense. And then you could in Chuck Long and Jonathan Hayes' offense, and you could say the same thing about Drew Plitt as well. He wasn't comfortable. And then once they got Luis Perez there, they really opened it up. I don't know if that was a grasping of the playbook. I don't know if that's Luis Perez just being that constant professional. But people jazz up. Oh, Kyle Sloter was all USFL quarterback. Okay, man, I think Te'amu should have got that honor. And then I go Te'amu, Cookus, and then Jamar Smith in 2022. That is.
Yeah, and I think Tiamu kind of showed a little bit of that in the XFL as well when he went over with the defenders and where the defenders went, even though it didn't result in a championship because Arlington kind of came out of nowhere and got hot when the time mattered. But I think Tiamu solidified himself as one of the top spring ball quarterbacks, and I love the fact that he's latched on in Minnesota right now, despite with all the injuries. But
he's a free agent with no
is he a free
LOI.
agent? I
Yeah,
thought he was. I thought he was with their practice squad. No.
No, he.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was.
I didn't realize he got released from the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, he I think he signed like for a week and then he was done. But yeah, he's a free agent, no LOI, and they go into this draft and this phase of the UFL with De'Aaron King, Coach De'Aaron King, by the way. Yeah. So does he come back? And Jeremy Hickbottom. So, DC's a team. Fred Keiss, man, he can design a system to make it work. 51 high watermark from yesterday as well. Very curious to see. Very curious to see what happens with De'Aaron King and what the DC defenders say as well. So, I mean, you can't throw Jeremy Hickbottom in there, man. I know he's an arena guy and all that goofy stuff, but dude, he is not the way.
Jalen McClendon.
I was gonna say McClendon, DeAndre Johnson, both.
DeAndre Johnson.
I go McClendon, man. Don't even give me DeAndre Johnson. I like.
Come on.
I go McClendon.
I'm not saying DeAndre should be anybody's starter in terms of a pass first offense, but I mean, you can't debate that dude's an unbelievable athlete.
No, I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, I think McClendon's got a stronger arm and whatnot. So.
Here we go, Chris, with the indoor names now. Todd Centillo is a guy I really hope gets an opportunity. I think he could be a great quarterback, and he's actually somebody I've been trying to connect with on social media so I can ask him his interest in indoor ball, but we'll see if I can ever break down that wall. Yeah,
I mean, I love Justin Arth. We'll see what happens. I think he needs to, play a little bit. And, Justin, if you're watching this, I think you need to get a full season under you in the IFL and the Arena League, and then I definitely feel like you're back up there in that rotation. I know you're doing a lot of good stuff though, so keep it up. Jared brings up a good point. Vikings should have given Te'amu a chance after Dobbs, Mullins, and a chance with the Cousins injury. I mean, they had Nick Mullins, obviously, Josh Dobbs, Jaron Hall, and they had Sean Mannion in that room. I mean, you got to think with all these injuries, like Kevin O'Connell knows quarterbacks. He knows something we don't. And, there's a conversation offline for some Te'amu stuff as well. Scott talks about, do we think Cody Latimer should be in the NFL or is he returning? I mean, I think he's open to anything outdoor. We're all in agreement. Yeah, all in agreement with that.
Yeah. He has said this will be his last season, I assume, unless he gets an NFL spot. But he mentioned that on Twitter a couple times.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that. He's got the Super Bowl ring, got a little bit of change, made the full transition to tight end this year. So we'll see what happens.
Exactly. I think he's also set to be 30 this season, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Yeah, and I do think he does have gas left in the tank. But, I mean, that's such a grind on your body, man. Like when you start playing and everything, like do you really want to take these hits when you look at your bank account and your mortgage is paid off and whatnot? Like, I mean, that, it just comes down to what these guys' personal goals are, like Paxton Lynch has plenty of money in his bank account, but he still thinks he can do it. And hell, maybe with AJ Smith as his OC, we'll see what's going out. Just going back over the college game day, they're talking about that disgusting Orange Bowl game between FSU and Georgia. So pretty cool to see 4 quarterbacks from Georgia get in, 2 walk-on guys as well. But yeah, definitely don't disagree with you, Scott. I do think he has plenty left in the tank. Lindsey Scott, now they have Tom Flacco, Brandon Silvers, and what's it called? And Lindsey Scott in Houston. We'll see what happens with that.
Lindsey Scott's going to be playing football somewhere in 2024. I
easily,
guarantee it.
For sure, easily.
He's on a neg list with the CFL, I believe Montreal, if I'm not mistaken. He had a USFL team draft him. He had an XFL team draft him.
I was going to say, he was drafted all over the place except for the NFL. So
exactly. I firmly believe he will have a spot on a spring football roster. And he's also got a soft landing spot because he was coaching last year. So
yeah, he's at Texas State, I believe, with former NFL QB G.J. Kinn. So, I mean, I think
Texas State was fantastic this year.
Bro,
they were amazing.
We're big G.J. Kinn guys over here, man.
Yeah,
on the up and up for sure.
Wasn't he a spring league quarterback at one point?
No, he was in that weird tweener. They had the FXFL when he was there, but I mean the FXFL that was Brian Woods' adventure. Not really many people were diving into playing that. You had Jake Heaps. On there, who was Russell Wilson's QB coach. You had, Josh Freeman was a part of it. There's John Jalapio. He played in the league for a little bit. Mike Golick Jr. was there as well, but no one was really that wasn't a transition to the NFL for a lot of guys.
That makes sense. I honestly, to be completely honest, and I had never even heard of the FXFL until starting to research the USFL and stuff when they started coming back, and the TSL, and kind of realizing that was also a thing. But it's kind of weird how there's been so many different alternative football leagues that have come and gone and never really gained the notoriety that the XFL and the USFL did this past season, and kind of gotten to that point. We hear a bunch of criticism about how the XFL and the USFL are operating, but whatever everybody seems to disregard is that their ultimate goal was to be a developmental league or an alternative option for players that were borderline NFL talents. And we saw these two leagues combined to put 100+ players back in the NFL this year that may not have had that opportunity if it weren't for, the opportunities they were given in the USFL and the XFL. So, I mean, regardless of how we feel about how this merger is going down, I've told coaches the same thing. I'll tell players everything, the same thing. But I think we have to look at these two leagues as successful. Despite the fact that we're watching teams go away, their ultimate goal was a success at the end of the day. You know what I mean? I think we can slice that a bunch of different ways in terms of financial situation and all that. But at the end of the day, I think what matters is getting players and coaches the opportunities they needed to progress their careers.
And the other thing is here, for me at least, is, and I know that they're not going to do that, at least not to start off with, but I kind of wish that the UFL would take a little bit of a different approach and stop trying to push this we are a developmental league for the NFL narrative. Primarily just because a lot of the guys that are in this league for the most part are NFL fringe guys. So they're already on the NFL radar. The NFL knows who these guys are, and a majority of them have either been into camps or not. I think the UFL would be smart to kind of brand themselves as a league like the XFL had started doing, like the League of Opportunity. Like, come here, brand yourself. Make this a home eventually if you need to. Obviously, it's at start, front half. Most not, like everybody's dream is to get back to the NFL. But over time, a guy like Cody Latimer, could easily have been a guy who had built a nice reputation in the spring league. Made a good chunk of money. It's always one that goes back to one of the things like Luis Perez. We talk about him as the spring ball GOAT, right? He's the GOAT of spring ball. People are going to remember Luis Perez, the spring ball GOAT. Maybe not all football fans, but football fans that pay attention are going to remember that Luis Perez, then Luis Perez, the practice squad Rams player, right? Like, that's just the way that it works. And I wish the spring ball would kind of lean a little bit into that branding side of things, a little heavier than just being like, hey, go be a nameless, a faceless nobody. No offense to any player when I say that, by the way, but a faceless nobody on an NFL practice squad, because nobody's going to remember who you are coming off the practice squad. We will, because we're the hardcore fans. But if you're not getting that exposure and that opportunity, and you're constantly in the limelight like the UFL did with a lot of these guys, nobody is going to care. That's my thought process behind it. And I understand the money is a big factor when it comes into all of this, but if you just lay your foundation and become a pillar for a league like this, become a face of a league like this, all that money issues will eventually go away. Like, it will level itself out eventually. Then a minimum roster, a minimum contract on a roster spot that you're not guaranteed.
Well, here's one thing that you didn't even touch on either, is the fact that we saw players go from the USFL to a practice squad, right back to the USFL, and continue right where they left off and building their brand. So there's nothing stopping you, if you're a player, from building your brand, making a name for yourself, becoming a star in the USFL. A guy like Victor Bolden, for instance, who won a USFL championship, went to the NFL, had his cup of tea there, got a little bit more money, came back to the XFL, won another championship. Like, that dude is going to be a legend by the time he hangs up his cleats in spring football, and he might have a good, savings account balance because of the fact that he continued to get NFL opportunities, even if it didn't necessarily pan out, And that's the thing that a lot of guys aren't necessarily looking at, is you can have your cake and eat it too when it comes to the USFL or the XFL. You can build that name for yourself. You can still get the opportunities in the NFL. And if it doesn't work out, you can come right back as long as you don't burn those bridges. And we've seen it specifically with the Stallions quite a bit. If you look throughout their roster, a bunch of the guys that signed with the NFL came right back to the Stallions, and Nate Brooks, a bunch of different guys here. And then they went out and got other USFL guys. Carlo Kemp was a name that, we talked about a lot in year one in 2022 because he was such a ferocious pass rusher. He gets the opportunity with the Chargers, stays there for a year, and now he's back, so he gets to continue building on his name as well. So, I mean, these leagues, there's more to them than just, a chance to get back to the NFL for sure.
There's just a couple of comments real quick, Pat, because I know you wanted to say something, but I'm not saying that the UFL is not going to be considered a minor league. I understand that. It will never compete with the NFL. I fully understand that as well. But there's nothing stopping it from becoming a top tier league in general and make money for these guys to be able to do that, though, right? There's nothing stopping this league from doing that, in a sense, because it's not in direct competition with the NFL. And for Scott's comment about becoming the NFL's, favorite feeder league, they already have that. It's called the NCAA. Like that. It's legitimate.
It's called the Power Five.
It's called the Power Five conference. It's literally the NCAA. They don't draft 260 players every year for that to not be their feeder league. So these leagues don't need to be a feeder league. That's what I'm getting at. It's the UFL does not need to be a feeder league to the NFL. It can be a stepping stone, sure, but it doesn't have to be marketed as such, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be revolved so heavily around that. USFL and XFL pushing 57 players on NFL rosters, but only like 8 stick. I understand that, and that's a great selling point for players, but it's not if I'm a player, it's not a definitive thing, because I've already been to the NFL on that front. I'm not there now. I want to get back, but I also understand there's a lot of politics coming into it. And when there's 260 players every year, or 300 players, or whatever it is that gets, not including undrafted free agents, it could probably be up to 400 coming out of college every year. Those percentages dwindle a little more each time. So just make a brand for yourself, build it. And like, you were saying, Sam, go when you're called upon and come right back and continue building that.
Yeah, exactly. Keep those relationships.
Yeah, let me go through some of these comments real quick. Greg, Quinton Pulling did not resign. He's actually, moving on with his life outside of football. So he is, maybe he'll come back depending on what his career is. But I've been told that he's got a job on the other side. Where are we getting the rosters? Unfortunately, Wikipedia right now, you can probably get them on Fox Sports as well, but Wikipedia is usually pretty in step. People update that all the time. Let me touch my opinion on what Adam's saying. I don't think like Michael was saying. I think with the NCAA, obviously that's the premier feeder league, the premier what's the word I'm looking for the premier minor league for this, and also like the NFL has a free minor league system with these leagues. So like, if all these people want to do it, then why are they? Montez, the Battlehawks are in the XFL now, the United Football League, which Jared touched on and whatnot. I mean, and then just to kind of touch it up with Adam saying again, the UFL is a catch-all for the guys that fall through the cracks. Yeah, and then it gives opportunities for these small school guys that we've talked about, or these group of 5 guys that aren't getting as much NFL interest. A guy that I just interviewed that went live today, which probably wasn't the best thing to put it live, was BJ Wilson. Got hurt in college at the D2 level, was still able to get a contract in the NFL with the Panthers and the Carolina Panthers, and is now with the Houston Roughnecks for the next 25 minutes, maybe, but he played in the CFL for a little bit when they expanded their practice squad rosters. So now BJ should have an opportunity being in the draft pool to, up his stock. New high water mark, by the way, 53. If you're new here, please drop a like, subscribe, helps us out. We're getting a couple subscribers on the stream, on the way to 1,000. So pretty pumped about that. Appreciate everyone checking in.
I think The Rock is up next, by the way.
Yeah, I like what you said, Pat, about the free developmental system. It seems like a lot of people keep going back to this idea that the NFL will someday invest in the UFL or the XFL or the USFL.
Never.
There's no reason to. Yeah. Why would you? These leagues are already existing on their own. They're already coming out of the woodwork left and right. So why would you throw money at that if you're the NFL? You already get to reap the benefits. And let's be honest, a lot of these guys would not be playing at all and be waiting for an NFL opportunity if it weren't for the fact that the UFL is there. We've seen it before. A lot of these guys that are playing the UFL now were out of football between 2020 and 2022 until the USFL came back and after the XFL folded. So it's one of those situations where if you're the NFL, there's absolutely no positive about throwing money at the UFL whatsoever. You already get all the benefits. You reap none of the downsides of having to financially deal with that league. Not saying that it's going to be a loss long term, especially if the NFL partnered with them, but at the same time, they've already been down that road and it already failed. They already closed down NFL Europe for a reason, and that was in another country that offered a fan base that they had not tapped. So I think realistically that ship has sailed. I don't think it's ever going to come back. I think the most we can hope for is individual NFL team owners or former players, as Pat pointed out, eventually, investing in the league on their own accord, seeing the value in it. Because past that, the NFL as an organization is never going to go back down that road, in my personal opinion.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, and Jay, you said money is the name of the game and the only alt league to succeed, millions behind the LIV Golf. I did want to mention real quick that the 5 partners that are listed on the UFL website are The Rock, Danny Garcia, Redbird Capital, Fox, and ESPN, which I found extremely interesting that ESPN's name was in there as well. But it sounds like there's 2 networks in behind, or at least this is what was I saw screenshots and reporteds of it from the UFL on the website as well, but those are the 5 partners that were listed.
I got them on the screen now.
Yeah. And I think it was like Eric, what is it? Eric's Shanks is the representative for Fox as the representative for Fox. So I just thought that was interesting because it sounds like there's a good amount of money behind this league. It's just whether or not it's sustainable. And right now it looks more sustainable than probably ever because the 2 leagues came together.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% in step with that. Going back to Fox to Gameday. By the way, they're on Sarkeesian.
Sarkeesian,
yeah. But big thing about having, obviously, you have Fox now, you have ESPN, working in step, going to have these games. I talked the other day, I was saying, man, if we can have 1.5 million over the stream, that'd be nice. But if we can have 1.5, if we can have 1.5 million per game, like per each game, especially now that they're not cannibalizing each other, I think that would make me feel pretty good. Adam Cohn brings up a Danny Etling signing. Yeah, very under the radar. The announcement was supposed to happen at 10 a.m. Eastern time. It is now 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. They've teased The Rock. It's going to be on College Game Day. A lot of Sarkisian stuff right now. They're going through all the bowl games and everything like that. So, Cash, appreciate the comment. New high watermark, by the way, 57. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. Go. Probably be doing streams throughout the season. On your channel, Sam, I'll be doing the QB rankings and whatnot. Probably sticking with interviews on my channel and whatnot as well. So just if you do subscribe, we'll do some more streams throughout the season. But we're also, going to be working with other channels and doing a bunch of goofy stuff. JM writes, I'm optimistic, mostly because this league looks like the XFL 2020 more than anything else. I mean, I'm going to support it. I'm going to cover it. I'm going to write articles about it. And I'm going to go to the games. I'm going to invite my family, invite my girlfriend, invite, my friends to these games because, it's exactly what needs to happen in order for this thing to survive. Do you hope the UFL will do fantasy football in the future? Mark Perry does fantasy. There are a couple others. Adam Pelletier, I think, did fantasy as well. So there are avenues to do fantasy football, and I think as soon as it gets mainstream on ESPN, I think that only is going to up the value of it. But we'll see what happens. Sports betting was big as well, so.
I'm also going to throw out altfantasysports.com.
Yeah, I think that was Adam Pelletier.
Is that Adam's site?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't 100% sure if Adam was the one behind that one or not, but that's the name of the site. That's where we did all our XFL stuff too. Yeah, Scott. We touched on that a little bit earlier. That the Houston team is being possibly, for rumors anyways, and we won't know until we're officially told, but that it's the Gamblers organization that is surviving, but it's being rebranded as the Roughnecks. That's the I don't know, I guess the rumor as far as what they're planning on doing with the Houston name, because I think they realized that the Roughnecks were a little more marketable or a little more of a brand name in the area because Houston Gamblers never played a home game there. So yeah. It kind of makes sense.
Greg writing very bullish on the league. New high watermark, by the way, 65. New here, drop a like, subscribe, appreciate it. DJP 16. Let the NFL develop their own players. I mean, I
think that's supposed to say let the UFL, because he says instead of snuggling up to the NFL later. So I think he just wrote NFL twice.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion on that, take it for what it's worth. There is so much going on in the NFL that these guys, you're either ready or you can't. There's a lot of, in my opinion, just like, hey, we got to go right now, figure it out. Let's move. Let's do it. Okay, cool. Dope. Like, we're going to be moving on type thing. So while I think that'd be great to have these coaches do it, some of these coaches actually aren't might get some backlash on this, good coaches. They're more of good managers, and they can manage the room and they can teach the systems and whatnot. So it's like they expect you to be ready to go and whatnot. But there's also, on the flip side, there are guys who go in the NFL who have never been in a 3-point stance. There are quarterbacks who have never taken a snap under center.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a real big thing right now. And it's like, if you can't do that, bro, move on. Like, we're moving on. We got other guys. There's another guy that, can do that. So I think that might be a cruel way of saying it, but that's the reality of it, is sometimes that's just the reality of what this business is. you know.
Well, and I
So
think the other side of things too is people don't realize that the coaches are also trying. Some coaches are also trying to make a case for a possible NFL invite or step up as well. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily where they're going to get to or whatnot, but a guy like Wade Phillips may be happy where he is at this point. You know, a guy like Reggie Barlow may want to try to get to the NFL.
yeah,
So
but and I'm gonna come off as biased with Reggie because I don't want to say there's a personal relationship there, but I know Reggie's mentor. I know one of his quarterbacks. I've talked with them about Reggie. Reggie is for the boys. You know what I mean? Reggie is
yeah,
Reggie cares about developing. He does want to go to the NFL. He wants to be an NFL head coach, but I think at this point he does have the ability to translate to an NFL and a position coach, and then eventually become a coordinator and so on and so forth. Why would they draft a player that's never been taken a snap under center? Michael, do you want to dive on this, and then I'll throw my thoughts in there?
yeah. I mean, so for instance, with today's day and age, with the way that the game has gone, the spread offenses, the air raid offenses, and the pistol offenses, which is where you normally run your RPO, which is your run pass option out of, is kind of the new norm. And it's the norm at the high school level. It's actually taught at middle school in some cases, even up here in Maine, where we don't really have a huge football culture as much anymore. Even those are still taking a large a large of the traditional playbook out of football. So your centers never go under center because there's no need to. It's the benefits of the shotgun. It's the benefits of creating extra space between the defensive line to get to your quarterback. It also creates a cleaner pocket, believe it or not, because there's not one extra person, you know, in that pocket, aka the quarterback, and you can set your running back up a little deeper as well for running lanes. So the QB doesn't get under center as much anymore because the traditional offenses are rolling out. If you take a look at the NFL in general, the running back situation in the NFL is the run game is kind of you know run through your quarterback now in comparison to it just being a straight quarterback that's not mobile and hands off to your running back 27 times a game. I mean, we saw Najee Harris run it 22 times last week or last night, and it was probably one of the highest totals of the year other than maybe Kyron Williams. So that's the reason why you would draft a guy that's not under center, is because most systems nowadays are between the spread, air raid, and the RPO. So all those quarterbacks are stuck in that system or in that kind of wheelhouse. So when you draft a guy, it fits your system as an offensive coordinator. And that's basically the reason why quarterbacks don't take snaps under center anymore or as much.
No, I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I mean, it's just if it's the same thing with like 3-point stances and offensive linemen. That's why the tush pushes don't always work either, because some of these guys are not like firing out like the rugby scrum, and you could see the stiffness in their hips and whatnot. And I mean, someone made a joke the other day. It's like, I've been hearing for 3 years that Jalen Hurts squats 600 pounds. Has he not gotten stronger? I thought that was kind of funny. Jay, I don't, I guarantee it. I actually just dropped that interview with BJ Wilson, and I've interviewed former Eskimo Elks Edmonton football team player, Trey Watson as well. Professor CDA, hey man, that'd be pretty cool. I don't think it's
That's Chris's burner account.
Yeah, Chris.
It's gotta be. Yeah. That is the only way somebody would say something that crazy.
Well, it's got a picture on him, and I'm looking at it, and it's not him. I
don't know.
Yeah,
There's some pretty crazy Instagram filters these days.
Oh my god, dude! Chris just goes on the Google search. Unrelated but related. If you look at highlighting it here, Chris with a beard. No, teams have not been announced. I'll tell you what, though, I know a lot about Steve Sarkisian now.
I'm learning a bunch about Michael Penix now too.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I mean, I just remember Penn State, the COVID year, him doing God's work. But if you look on the XFL, or excuse me, the UFL website, it does say at the bottom, properties owned by the XFL properties, all rights reserved. I mean, that's just more of an ego thing, in my opinion. Professor CDA, all about some Cowboy Nation. Well, we interviewed Joey Ivy. He was drafted by the Cowboys, so I guess we are too, to an extent, right? Like I said, Chris with the Beard, they haven't announced. Appreciate you checking in. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new. Ty, we're here, man. We are here. We're watching this young lady right now. New high watermark 66. She looks like she's pro Oregon up there. Oh, we got to see something about Iowa. That's terrible.
Iowa and Tennessee. They're talking about Nico Leava.
Dude, unrelated. If you look on TikTok, Throw God, he talks about DJ Ungole, and he's like, I'm going to go to Dearborn, Michigan, and then play in the Saudi Arabia League. And then he pretty much talks about DJ Ungole like converting to radical Islam to go in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, Iowa is terrible. They have an offensive guard playing quarterback, though. That's really progressive.
I mean, the great news about that game for Iowa is Tennessee starting a true freshman, so there's a good chance that game is going to end up being like 6-2. It's going to be a baseball score.
Yeah, no, I'll make sure to hit a 3-run home run.
So Chris with the Beard just made a comment there. Chris, we touched base a little bit here on this rumor. And I'll mention it again since you probably joined us a little bit late. But from what I'm hearing with the rumor is it's actually the gamblers organization from the USFL that is actually surviving. They're just rebranding it as the Roughnecks. So I guess you could say it's 5 XFL teams and 3 USFL teams. But I think it was important for the USFL to get their organization, a 4th organization in there. It just, from a marketing standpoint, makes more sense for it to be the Roughnecks, if that's in fact what is happening.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Tanner Mordecai is still playing college football. He's gonna be a great.
I'm pretty sure he's been in the league, been in college now for about 12 years.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on that front. People are anti Under Armour merch. I mean, I don't really buy merch. I have it's more of a gift, or like, I'm not really, I'll buy like my buddy's merch more than anything else. But like, I mean, I like the jerseys, I like the Battlehawks helmets. I felt like there was a lot of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, on the 2022 side or 23 side for the XFL. But I mean, who am I? Who am I? I'm just a guy streaming.
I think I have
this wave.
I have a merch idea for you, Pat.
What?
You need to make up some things that say all that goofy stuff.
All that goofy stuff.
All that goofy stuff.
Go. I like it.
You got to put that all over the place for you,
dude. I'm trying to make a shirt for the summer. I'm going to go sell in the Ozarks, and it's going to say, "Yeah, my dad's a lawyer."
Oh, Pat, we'll talk off camera, man. I got a good merch guy. Scott's got a question for you, Michael.
Yes, I see that. So Scott, yes, the European League of Football. I actually do a show on the Shady Sports Network every summer. It's called the Summer Showcase. I've interviewed some players that are over there. I've followed the league for the first time this year. It's actually a really good quality league. They plan on expanding by 1 next year. I think it brings the total to 18 teams.
Is it Paris? Is it Paris?
Nope, it's the Madrid Bravos this year is the expansion team. They are. It's good quality. You can. They have a league pass where it's like $100. You drop $100, you get like 100 games basically. It's $1 a game essentially in English through their app. So basically, if you want to learn more about the league, I have a summer showcase on Shady Sports Network. Shameless plug.
Yeah, and you can join throw that link in there as well. We got some GLVC guys over there right now doing big things. AJ Wentland, Matt Cole just signed a contract. I heard his contract is above league average, by the way, per source.
Yeah. Well, they just started signing They just started. Yes, Scott. Only can carry 4 Americans, 2 on the offensive side, 2 on the defensive side. And I kind of understand why the league did that. I wish they had stuck with 6, but they do that because they want to build a home base inside each market. They want to be able to start doing it. For instance, Vienna already has a youth program in place that they're already building football culture over there, American football culture over there. A lot of these other teams don't have that yet. So that's what they're trying to do. So I fully understand that and fully get that as well. It sounds like the special announcement from The Rock and Danny Garcia are coming up next. Finally, they're actually walking towards the podium.
Okay, I'm a minute. I'm a couple seconds behind. There we are. Let's ready the ball out, baby.
Well, I think they're going to commercials, so.
Okay. Well, I'll show it on the stream real quick just for a second, and then I'll take it off. Oh, come on, guys.
And Jared, real quick.
Merch.
Sam, hold on one second. And Jared, to answer your question about London, I guess there is a lot of challenges in place with London. It sounds like from everything that I'm hearing, the ELF in London is probably not a good mix at this point in time. That's all I've known.
Interesting. I was going to say, speaking of which, on the merch side, I was one of the few fans, or not the few fans, I guess I should say. I was one of those fans that in 2020 kind of hesitated to buy merchandise and kind of missed out on the buck when we had the original XFL. And now I'm kind of looking around, and I've got the Vipers football next to me. I've got my Stars T-shirt, my Stars hat, and I'm kind of glad that I spent the money this season, especially if these teams are going away. We get to hold a little piece of history that may never come back, to be quite honest. So I was just kind of, looking at that this morning, and I'm like, man, I'm glad this time around I made the plunge and actually spent some money because 2020, I missed out big time. I really wanted some of that Battlehawks merch, and I passed up on it and definitely regretted it hardcore.
Dude, you know what I'm going to be making? I'm going to be making CMC in the Dome with Max Borgi.
There you go.
I'm going to have some dudes sell it outside the stadium. So.
Oh, and
Sam, a.k.a. Pat.
Yeah.
And Sam, just to make your 2024 off to a better start, sounds like Devontae Smith is dealing with a high ankle sprain.
Oh boy, yay!
Yeah.
And I heard Avonte Maddox is injured again as well, so that's great.
I mean, we're talking. I'm hoping we get some of these. We up this backup. Dude, this upsets me with this backup quarterback talk. There were more quarterbacks to start last year than this year, and everyone's like, "This is crazy," and I'm like, "Yo, I've been on this tangent for years, man." Yeah,
it's getting close though.
It's at 60, and then we'll bump up to 61, 61, and then a couple flyers in this is you're going to probably have Jacoby Brissett next week if he's healthy. Sam Darnold could start. You could get Blaine Gabbert to start for the Chiefs because they're locked in.
McKinney or Mariota in Philly at the end there, I think.
Are they locked in?
They're not locked in for the division yet.
Yeah,
they still have a chance to win the division.
To be completely honest, I think at this point, probably about week 17, week 18, we'll be coming to the realization that Dallas has the division under lock.
Well, Philadelphia had it going into last week, but Philadelphia's lost to Arizona, knocked them out right now.
And Dallas won, so I mean,
yeah. So I think it does come down to this week.
I think you could probably push like an extra 3 or 4 quarterbacks to get the start. I mean, I think you let Flacco play half the game just because he's still repping and whatnot.
They still have a chance for the 1 seed, though.
The Browns do?
Yes, they still have an outside. No, they still have an outside chance for the 1 seed in the AFC.
How crazy is this NFL season? Speaking of which, we got the Texans, the Browns, and the Lions are all in playoff contention in the same season, and they're all 10+ win teams.
The Lions and Browns have all
they're clinched, right?
They're clinched. Houston is 8-7 right now or 9-7 right now in a playoff spot, but I think No, actually, I think they're on the outside looking in right now, just because of the Colts.
Oh,
Believe
dude,
it or not, with Gardner
they,
Minshew are at 9-7. It's set in the 7th spot. So
yeah, I thought the Ravens locked it up. It is not letting me show the stream, so we will do comments on that front. I will keep updating the. Okay, UFL page is different, by the way.
already,
Yeah, literally just
oh,
refresh. There we go. Hey, we're up. Team's up. Team's
there
hot.
they are.
Team's hot. We
All
got
right.
Arlington
Interesting.
Renegades,
There
Birmingham
they are.
Stallions, DC Defenders, Battlehawks, Panthers, Houston Roughnecks. My man.
So
Let
yeah,
me.
it looks like that piece of news that we got earlier this week was true. Wow.
So I'm going to be.
Interesting.
I'm listening in both ears right now.
Gotcha. Somebody said something about Royal Retros. I wanted to throw a shameless plug. We are actually sponsored at Shady Sports Network by Royal Retros. So if you want to get I believe it's 15% off, use our code Shady Sports at checkout, and you can get a little bit of a discount.
Yeah. And if I'm not talking, it's because I'm going through the both ears right now.
No worries. Real quick first impressions. I mean, obviously this does look like a little XFL heavy with that Houston team, but like was said in the comments before, let's not forget that Houston Roughnecks is technically the Gamblers, or so we believe. Definitely interesting to see that we ultimately are going to have, the Renegades back again, the Stallions back again. Obviously, you couldn't have this league without the Battlehawks or the Brahmas, in my personal opinion. DC was a must-have. Stallions weren't going anywhere. We knew that.
Head
John
coach. Yep.
confirmed as showboats.
Yep.
Wow. Interesting.
Well, I just think overall, when you take a look at these 8 teams and them being up, I think the compromise, being quote unquote XFL heavy, I think the compromise was just more to make sure that the organization of the Gamblers stayed on. But from a marketing standpoint, it makes perfect sense because the Roughnecks had a home market where the Gamblers did not. If you take a look at the 8 teams that survived, all 8 teams that survived were all home market teams. Memphis, Michigan, Birmingham from the USFL side all had, a home team. And Coach Phillips is the San Antonio Brahmas head coach now. Hines Ward did not stick around, and Wade Phillips has moved over to the Brahmas. But I just think that was probably the compromise that came with Houston, was to keep the Gambler staff overall, and then just market it as the Roughnecks to keep the fan interest and engaged down there in Houston. So
Clint Sig, Houston Gambler. Yep, that's what we got now. Clint Sig, the Houston Gambler.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's
so much
all on
unpack here.
Yeah, I mean I just posted it on Twitter. They have UFL tickets and whatnot now. We reached a high watermark, by the way, of 68. By the way, someone point out the 10-game regular season starts March 30th with a battle of the 2023 champions. And apologies because I'm listening in one ear to Danny talk about empowerment. Players will report to training camp February 24th in Arlington, Texas. Birmingham Stallions versus the Arlington Renegades. As of right now, Darren, we assume that they are going to the. We assume that AJ is going there based off what I've been told. But yeah, that's really what we got going on. JM writes Pat McAfee, XFL Homer. Sorry, I'm like getting blown up in all different directions right now. So we'll see what happens. It's pretty goofy.
My question is, if you were going to switch all this around, I guess I kind of understand the thought process of having Curtis Johnson stay with the Houston name, but why not just keep Wade Phillips and his staff with the Roughnecks and put Curtis Johnson and his staff in San Antonio?
Well, and again, I think that was the compromise that was brought forth, because The Rock just said on his thing that they were, uh, when they went through this, they said it was a 50-50 split. They keep saying it's
Yeah,
a 50-50 split, and I think that was the compromise that they decided to do, was to say you can stay with the Gamblers organization. We're going to rebrand it as the Roughnecks, but we can put you in the USFL conference, and it's the only thing I can think of is that rumor was true. I was actually a little bit surprised that they decided to stick with um, the same branding, though. I thought maybe there might be a little bit of a logo change, maybe a little bit of a color scheme change of sorts, um, to kind of bridge that gap. And there still may be, obviously, it just maybe an older, logo at this point in time, but uh, it's the only thing that makes sense, especially if you're splitting an XFL conference and USFL conference, which is what they're doing. Um, it judging from this announcement, so it's the only thing I can think of that makes any sense as
yep.
to why you would do that.
And as you can see, we have Jack Cohn, Keem Butler, Abram Smith. That looks like Brandon Arcanado. I'm pretty sure.
That's Bo
Um,
Scarborough, I think.
yeah, Vinny Papali, who's with the Showboats now, Brandon Silvers, and 13 is EJ Perry. So 2 out of the 8 are not a part of this. So we'll see what happens. I mean, through here the Showboats look pretty rad. Their uniforms, I think Stallions had one of the better uniforms as well. So they're going through it now. They got the Birmingham Stallions. Jay Sternberger's throwing highlights. They got the Houston Roughnecks. Michael, if you want to kind of elaborate on that, what they got going on right there, showing a lot of Reese Porter right there, Max Porgy, Garrett Owens, all that stuff.
No, what was your question alluding to? I'm sorry, I was reading something. I apologize. You wanted me to elaborate on what?
Like right now, they're going through all the teams. I
Oh,
mean,
they're going through the
yeah,
team. Yeah, so
yeah,
essentially, basically, it just looks like that. To touch on your Showboats thing about the uniforms, I think they were awful, but uh, uh, no, they were just going through the 8 teams and they were kind of showing it. They did not elaborate on the Roughneck situation as far as it being a Gamblers just kind of rebuilt or whatever, but uh, he did mention earlier that it was important that they were in home markets, and they were kind of a little bit showing the highlights as far as the teams were concerned with that as well. Max Borgi, I don't think is with Houston anymore. He's over with you in St. Louis now, isn't he?
yep.
Yeah. So
Breaking news.
and I think that Max Borgi move was part of the Gamblers staff staying. Like Max Borgi is a XFL guy that they wanted to keep on the XFL side, and because it's the Houston Gamblers, organization, I think they wanted to try to get some of the top guys out of the Roughnecks uniforms and give them homes. And St. Louis was probably like, "Well, come on home." So yeah, that's essentially where it is at that point in time. That I can expect. I'm sure you guys can expect probably a little bit of some uniform tweaks, maybe. I don't know what was USFL's partnership with their uniforms. Was that
I think it was
through
Starter or something like
Starter?
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I think Under
I
Armour's
don't.
a
I
step up
don't.
from Starter personally. So maybe there's some new uniforms that take place. I hope they don't touch Birmingham. I think Birmingham's got the best ones out of the USFL side. So, um, but other than that,
Dude, yeah. I mean, The Rock, not really knowing what's going on, called the Stallions 2-time XFL champions, player 54. Dude, all right. If just look up Warren Sapp, player 54, like The Rock. He goes, "Oh, do we? Do we?" Like that's one of my favorite videos, like that he talks about. I mean, we'll kind of wind down here. We've been doing this way longer than I expected us to do it. It is 11 o'clock, so I guess it's not terrible, our time management here. But when do we think we're going to get the schedules? I think after the draft, man. My opinion is all this turmoil and all this goofy stuff. It's been so much. Like, the schedules are the least thing I care about right now. Like, gives us a little break on the writing side as well to not be writing articles upon articles. We reached a high watermark, by the way, of 70. If you're new, let's drop a like there, subscribe. We're at 884 subscribers, which is pretty nuts. Really only been doing this a year. Or February 5th was my first video, so we'll see what's up. Scott Farley asked, when's the draft? I don't know. Allegedly, it's supposed to be on the 5th would be the first dispersal draft, and then the what's the
open draft would be on the 17th, I believe, is what.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, I'll throw this up here as well. USFL, XFL tweet pages are pushing their stuff out there. Press release just got put to my inbox. Panthers making a tweet, so Battlehawks making a tweet. They got Cole McDonald on there. AJ Smith saying, "Oh my."
Yeah.
Get ready.
I do want to say, as far as the schedules are concerned, judging from the March 30th release date of Arlington taking on Birmingham, it sounds like they probably already have a schedule in place. They just haven't announced it yet. And the drafts, they're going to be around. They'll probably be, your best bet will probably be on X or Twitter to follow along, would be my guess. I don't think they're going to probably do any kind of special of any sorts like that.
And some that was a definite exaggeration of some trademark rights purchasing, I guess, is basically what it boiled down to. They were keeping some trademark stuff in line, and people took that as possible expansion, which
not people, one person.
One person.
One person. Yeah.
Lots of people then took that as gospel. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm just perusing the Twitterverse here. A bunch of these guys, once again, Vinny Papali not on the team. EJ Perry not on the team. St. Louis local here, almost friend of the show, by the way. JJ Jacoby Jones, but I do think it's cool that all the leagues put out tweets and whatnot all aboard the yacht club. There's a shout out to you, man.
Hey, look at that. There's Shady Sports Network.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Mark Thompson, all gassed up, throwing the 2020 colors up there, but he'll be all right. Webb put in his
Mark.
Yeah.
Oh man, that guy cracks me
XFL, USFL insider Mark Thompson.
Yeah.
He cracks me up on Twitter so much, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad
his Twitter spaces are awesome, though. There are so many players that come in there.
To answer your question about Orlando Guardians being back many years from now, unfortunately, I think that's Jared who made that comment. Jared, unfortunately,
Zach with the drip.
Nice post, Zach. Unfortunately, I think Orlando's a burnt city. I don't know if they'll be willing to accept another team to come back down the road or not. Tampa Bay, even with all the burnage they've had, Tampa Bay seems to be a little more open to possibly bringing somebody back. So you might get Tampa Bay. Personally, I'd like to see them try to at least maybe strike a deal with FSU and try to get a team in Tallahassee. I know that's the northwest corner of Florida, but I think there's a good football market up there. I mean, I think so, Chris. I don't see why.
And Chris, I would advise you to reach out to your ticket reps. I don't know why people have asked me about ticket questions, and I'm just a guy who goes to the games and and whatnot and sits in there. But yeah, I would assume that there's going to be a new UFL app and whatnot. I'd like to believe it. Run it back. Let's go. 100% win in my book. But yeah, this is the last thing I want to touch on, and then let's all kick out and enjoy our days with our families, guys. I think this is a successful stream. But on the flip side, there's a lot of people who obviously bought tickets and whatnot. I would advise you guys to go reach out to your families. Or families. Well, you should always reach out to your families. But a lot of guys, they bought tickets and whatnot. Reach out to your ticket reps. Talk to them, see the refunds, and everything like that. So that would be my advice to everyone. just to kind of, streamline some things. Yeah, I mean, that's really it. That's really it on my front. I'm very curious to see what ticket pricings are going to be because of everything that, how cheap the USFL tickets were compared to XFL tickets, but we'll see what happens as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, for sure.
And I am bottom line just to talk about Anselm's comment. If you want to touch on that, y'all too.
Yeah, I mean, for my gut feeling, yeah, for sure, I think it will work. I think that they adding ESPN as a partner, because I don't think that they were originally a partner with the XFL in the first one. I think it was just a broadcasting deal. But now that they're an actual partner with the league, I think that just adds to the media side of things and gives them another way to be exposed and hopefully build this brand up across the board. So, yeah, my gut feeling is that this will work as long as the Eagles can stay in check and things can stay, properly run. I don't see why that this can't eventually end up being a 16-team league that we have for years and years and years of more American outdoor football, to be honest with you.
And guys, a shameless plug for myself. Getting lost in this, BJ Wilson, Houston Roughnecks guy, I talked about him. That link I have just posted, that is my interview with him. If you guys want to listen to BJ, he seems like a pretty awesome guy. Talked to him a couple times and whatnot offline. So, very curious to see where his career goes and whatnot, and just uber excited. Guys, drop your links, everything. Appreciate everyone. We've reached over 70. I think we gained like 13 subscribers during the stream. We went 2 hours 15 minutes, way longer than I felt like going. But I'm pretty grateful that everyone spent the time with us, and I'm grateful you guys spent the time with me as well.
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely,
for sure.
So, thanks for having us, Pat. Look forward to many more collaborations and live streams on your channel, and then definitely we'll have you back on ours as well. As far as my thoughts on if this will work, I think this is definitely going to work. I think this was a solid effort by both sides to come together and realize that they're stronger together than they are apart. And it may have caused a reduction in teams, but if that's ultimately what it takes to have a long-running, strong league, then I guess that's what it takes, and that's okay, because ultimately we need to have some sort of long-running alternative for players. Ultimately, really appreciate everybody who tuned in. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of great comments. You guys have been a great audience all day. I do have to say that the comment about the USFL names seems a little odd to me, given that the Panthers are an NFL name, and that the Stallions are basically just a play on the Broncos. So, I mean, I don't really see the complaint with the names, but other than that, thanks everybody for tuning in, and look forward to the next one.
Yep. Enjoy yourself, guys. Enjoy. Happy New Year. Hope you guys had a good Christmas. Let's get to work.